This weird technique lets you save even the most career-ending spins in iRacing, and more importantly, it will give you the confidence to push the car to the limit, especially in the wet. That technique is simply to induce understeer. It looks ridiculous, but it is effective, and in this video I'll tell you how to use this technique, why it works, and I'll even show you what happens if you try this in the real world. I'm a top 1% rated driver and professional sim racing coach, and this technique never fails to amaze people when I showcase it to students during coaching sessions. But in order to understand this technique, we first need to think about how we would usually save spins, which is to countersteer. Whenever we start to spin, it's because the rear tyres have exceeded the limit of grip, even if the front tyres have more grip to give. The front tyres keep asking the car to corner more, and the rear tyres say no and start sliding. The usual method for correcting this slide is to countersteer, turning into the direction of the slide. This asks the front tyres to do less cornering, which in turn asks the rear tyres to do less cornering, bringing the rear tyres back under the limit of grip. That usually works, but if you spend any time in sim racing, you'll know that some slides just feel completely uncatchable. Either you don't correct enough, overcorrect, or simply don't realise the car is sliding until it's already too late. These are the instances where inducing understeer becomes such a powerful technique. It's a brute force approach to killing spins, and it's ridiculously effective. So what exactly do we need to do to save spins with understeer? The simple answer is just to turn more. When you start to feel the car rotate more than you're comfortable with, just increase the steering in the direction you're already cornering. The goal here is simply to reach understeer. If you're already close to the limit on the front tyres, you won't have to turn the wheel much in order to reach understeer. But unlike with countersteering, when you're inducing understeer to save the spin, you don't have to be precise with the steering. If you're concerned about spinning, and you want to be certain to avoid the spin, you can get away with aggressively adding a lot of steering angle to make sure you push the front tyres to understeer. Assuming you weren't already pointing backwards when you noticed the slide, just this action will be enough to have the car correct itself. As the car starts to correct itself, just wait until it's pointing in the right direction, and then progressively unwind the steering back to the limit of grip. Then just continue the corner as if nothing ever went wrong in the first place. So that's what to do, but we also want to know why this technique works, when we should exploit it, and whether this technique is strictly for sim racing. Why it works. The answer is actually quite similar to why countersteering works. When we're oversteering, the front tyres have more grip than the rear tyres. But if we instead induce understeer to save the spin, we overwork the front tyres, causing them to slide across the track. And this still reduces the amount of cornering we're asking for, because when the front tyres are sliding, they're not effectively cornering the car. By inducing excessive understeer, the friction between the front tyres and the track is less than the friction between the rear tyres and the track. And the result is a net force applied to the rear of the car, pushing the rear back into alignment. But when should we exploit this technique? In the dry, it's not straightforward to say exactly when we should correct oversteer with countersteering, or when we should correct it with inducing understeer. To begin with, just experiment with this new method of saving the car, and decide for yourself when it feels more advantageous to save the car with understeer, and when it feels more advantageous to save the car with countersteering. But if I had to give a general rule, I'd say the bigger the correction you have to make, the more likely it is that inducing understeer is going to be favourable. In the wet, however, inducing understeer becomes a less nuanced, more powerful tool, one that allows you to more confidently push the car to the limit in difficult conditions. Because in the wet, oversteer happens more often, more quickly, and with more severe consequences. So many drivers resort to underdriving the car in these conditions, just to stay facing the right direction during the race. But you can gain significant lap time in the wet, just by having the confidence to push the car to the limit, knowing that whenever you get a snap of oversteer, safety is just 20 degrees of steering angle away. The side benefit here is if you induce understeer on entry while crossing over the slippery dry line, then when you cross back onto the more grippy wet line, you'll instantly get more cornering as a result of having the front tyres already on or over the limit of grip. And that extra available grip on the wet line is something you might have missed if you were underdriving the car in these conditions. But what happens if you try this approach in the real world? This is a student of mine pushing to the limit in a Caterham 270R at Silverstone in extremely low grip conditions. And this is what happened when he got a snap of oversteer coming out of the Vale chicane. You can see that this technique translates perfectly from the sim to the real world. The car starts to over-rotate, and as soon as Paul induces understeer, the car begins correcting itself. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing. And if you're serious about improving as a driver, you can check out my free Discord server with over 1,000 members, all looking to improve. See you in the next one.